movies or music, and just strings of binary digits, ones and zeros. A hash function takes any digital media and runs an algorithm on it to produce a fixed length and unique digital output known as a hash. This fixed length output is normally much smaller than the original input. Every time the same digital media is put through the hash function, it produces the exact same digital output, or hash. Derive the original digital media content from its generated hash, thus making the hash function one way. In a blockchain, the notion of mining requires miners to solve a problem with a known partial input derived from the latest state of the blockchain to create a hash target. The miners must try to guess the digital input that can create the hash target, thus solving the problem. As a hash is one way, the miners must try many combinations of input to create the hash target and solve the problem, which uses up a computer's resources like CPU and memory. The first miner to answer the problem wins. Merkle trees are an essential part, completely different to the original one. The mathematics behind the hash function ensures that there is no way to derive the original digital media content from its generated hash, thus making the hash function one way. In a blockchain, the notion of mining requires miners to solve a problem with a known partial input derived from the latest state of the blockchain to create a hash target. The miners must try to guess the digital input that can create the hash target, thus solving the problem. As a hash is one way, the miners must try many combinations of input to create the hash target and solve the problem, which uses up a computer's resources like CPU and memory. The first miner to answer the problem wins. Merkle trees are an essential part of a blockchain for data integrity. Each block in the blockchain can contain multiple transactions which each contain data. In this example, there are 4 transactions, tx1, 2. This process generates 2 separate and unique hashes, which are each based upon the combination of 2 hashes relating to 2 transactions. The 2 hashes are then combined and passed through the hash function again. This results in a single root hash, forming a complete Merkle tree.
The idea behind blockchain technology was described as early as 1991, when research scientists Stuart Haber and W. Scott Stornetta introduced a computationally practical solution for timestamping digital documents so that they could not be backdated or tampered with. The system used a cryptographically secured chain of blocks to store the timestamped documents. And in 1992, Merkle trees were incorporated into the design, making it more efficient by allowing several documents to be collected into one block. However, this technology went unused, and the patent lapsed in 2004, 4 years before the inception of Bitcoin. In 2004, computer scientist and cryptographic activist Hal Finney introduced a system called RPOW, Reusable Proof of Work. The system worked by receiving a non-exchangeable or a non-fungible hash-based proof of work token, and in return created an RSA signed token that could then be transferred from person to person. RPOW solved the double spending problem by keeping the ownership of tokens registered on a trusted server that was designed to allow its users throughout the world to verify its correctness and integrity in real time. RPOW can be considered as an early prototype and a significant early step in the history of cryptocurrencies. In late 2008, a white paper introducing a decentralized peer-to-peer electronic cash system called Bitcoin was posted to a cryptography mailing list by a person or group using the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. Based on the Hashcash proof of work algorithm, but rather than using a hardware-trusted computing function like the RPOW, the double spending protection in Bitcoin was provided by a decentralized peer-to-peer protocol for tracking and verifying the transactions. In short, Bitcoins are mined for a reward, using the proof of work mechanism by individual miners and then verified by the decentralized nodes in the network. On the 3rd of January 2009, Bitcoin came into existence when the first Bitcoin block was mined by Satoshi Nakamoto, which had a reward of 50 Bitcoins. The first recipient of Bitcoin was Hal Finney. He received 10 Bitcoins from Satoshi Nakamoto in the world's first Bitcoin transaction on the 12th of January 2009. In 2013, Vitalik Buterin, a programmer and co-founder of the Bitcoin magazine, stated that Bitcoin needed a scripting language for building decentralized applications. Failing to gain agreement in the community, Vitalik started the development of a new blockchain-based distributed computing platform, Ethereum, that featured a scripting functionality called smart contracts. Smart contracts are programs or scripts that are deployed and executed on the Ethereum blockchain. They can be used, for example, to make a transaction if certain conditions are met. Smart contracts are written in specific programming languages and compiled into bytecode, which a decentralized Turing-complete virtual machine called the Ethereum Virtual Machine, or EVM, can then read and execute. Developers are also able to create and publish applications that run inside Ethereum's blockchain. These applications are usually referred to as dApps, decentralized applications, and there are already hundreds of dApps running in the Ethereum blockchain, including social media platforms, gambling applications, and financial exchanges. The cryptocurrency of Ethereum is called Ether. It can be transferred between accounts and is used to pay the fees for the computational power used when executing smart contracts. Today, blockchain technology is gaining a lot of mainstream attention and is already used in a variety of applications, not limited to cryptocurrencies.
So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside the block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes the blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block a genesis block. Now, let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is